Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either.
Trump said he wants Greenland, and the world went quiet.
We need Greenland from a national security.
But not Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney flew straight to Oslo, sat down with 5 Nordic leaders, and made one thing absolutely clear.
We stand foursquare behind the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, being absolutely clear about that, being clear that we will back that with measures as necessary.
Territorial threats between allies are not acceptable. This meeting was not just a photo opportunity, it was a direct response to one of the most unusual political threats in modern Western history. And Canada just put itself at the center of it. Mark Carney traveled to Oslo, Norway to meet with the leaders of 5 Nordic countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland. The summit focused on 3 things: trade, security, and Arctic sovereignty. But everyone in that room understood the real reason they were there.
One of the reasons why we have been able to stand firmly on very common values, that you have to respect sovereign states, that you have to respect a people's right for self-determination, is because of our good friends.
US President Donald Trump had publicly and repeatedly stated his desire to take control of Greenland, a territory that belongs to Denmark.
We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic.
Not through negotiation, not through diplomacy, through force if necessary. That kind of language from the leader of the most powerful country in the world does not go unanswered. And so the Nordic nations reached out. And Canada showed up. Together, these 6 leaders sent a message to Washington and to the rest of the world.
We've been worried about Greenland. We're obviously worried in general about the situation in Europe when it comes to Ukraine, but we're not afraid.
This is responding to threats which are unacceptable in general, but even more unacceptable among allies.
Sovereign nations have the right to exist without the threat of takeover. That principle is not negotiable, and this alliance is now prepared to defend it. At the summit, Canadian journalists and Danish media both pressed Carney on one direct question. Would Canada actually send troops to defend Greenland if things escalated? Carney did not say yes, but he did not say no either. Instead, he said Canada stands firmly behind the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, and that it would back those principles with measures as necessary.
We stand foursquare behind the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity.
In normal times, that kind of careful language might seem weak, but these are not normal times. And in that room, those words carried real meaning. Denmark has already moved to strengthen its military presence in Greenland. Other allied nations have sent troops into the region through joint military exercises. Iceland's leader drew a direct connection between what is happening in Greenland and what has been happening in Ukraine. 2 situations where a larger power is threatening a smaller one. And in a moment that stood out above everything else, Denmark's Prime Minister looked directly at Carney and thanked him personally by name.
Especially you, Mark. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for that.
That kind of public gesture between heads of state means something, but the real story is just beginning. To understand why this summit matters so much, you need to understand what Greenland actually is. Greenland is a large semi-autonomous island that belongs to Denmark. It sits between the Arctic Ocean and the North Atlantic. It is one of the most strategically important pieces of land on the planet. Why? Because the Arctic is changing fast. As ice melts, new shipping routes are opening. Countries are now able to access vast reserves of oil, gas, and rare earth minerals that were previously unreachable. Greenland sits right in the middle of all of that. It also has enormous military value. Whoever controls the high Arctic controls key observation and defense positions over both Russia and North America. Trump first talked about buying Greenland during his first term. Nobody took it seriously then. This time he came back with more force, more frequency, and a very different tone. This time, people are paying attention. This summit is already changing things, and the effects go well beyond the Arctic. For Canada, this is a turning point. For years, Canada has played a quiet role on the world stage, staying close to the United States and avoiding direct confrontation.
We are making heavy investments in the Arctic. We'll be working with our Nordic partners. We'll be working through NATO.
That approach is shifting. Carney is now positioning Canada as an independent voice, a country that will stand on principle even when it creates friction with Washington. For the Nordic nations, Canada's involvement gives them something they needed, a major non-European ally standing publicly in their corner. That changes the political calculation for everyone involved. For the people of Greenland, this moment is deeply personal. They have watched powerful countries debate their future as if they have no say. But Greenland's own government has been clear. The island is not for sale, and its people will decide their own path.
Do you want Greenland to be bought?
No, not at all. No.
Why not?
Because it's our land and we have our culture, language, and we're starting to get our own way of life.
I don't really like this idea, like being part of United States, America. What I do like is I like to work with them, for example.
For the broader Western alliance, the summit raises a question that no one wants to say out loud. What happens to NATO when one of its most powerful members stops acting like an ally? And this is where things get more interesting. Here is the part that most coverage is missing. Trump has actually pulled back from his most aggressive Greenland comments in recent weeks. The immediate pressure has eased slightly. So why is this summit still so important? Because the damage is already done. Trust between allies is not easily rebuilt. And without fully planning to, Trump pushed Canada and the Nordic nations into forming one of the strongest Arctic alliances in decades. What is happening here is bigger than Greenland. It is bigger than Trump. It is about the future shape of the Western world. For the past 75 years, the Western alliance worked because everyone trusted the same anchor, the United States. America led NATO. America provided security guarantees. America was the partner that showed up. Allies did not always agree with Washington, but they trusted it. That trust is now being tested in a way it has never been tested before. When the leader of the United States starts talking about taking over the territory of a NATO ally, it does not just create a short-term diplomatic problem, it plants long-term doubt. And doubt, once planted, changes behavior. Canada's move into Arctic diplomacy is one clear example of that changed behavior. Carney is not just responding to Trump. He is building something, a network of relationships with Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Finland, Sweden, and now the United Kingdom that will remain standing regardless of who sits in the White House. Iceland made the most important observation of the entire summit. Its leader said that the Greenland crisis is not a single isolated event. It is part of a larger pattern that connects to Ukraine, to NATO's future, and to the question of whether powerful countries can simply rewrite international rules by force. That question is now sitting at the center of every major conversation in Western politics, and Canada, for the first time in a long time, is leading that conversation. But there is still one question nobody has fully answered. After Oslo, Carney flew to London. He met with the UK Prime Minister. Then he had an audience with King Charles. Every stop on this tour is intentional. Every conversation is building towards something larger. The Arctic is no longer a remote issue that only affects a small number of people. It is now a front line for climate, for resources, for military strategy, and for the basic rules that govern how nations treat one another. Canada is standing at that front line, calmly, clearly, without backing down. Iceland said it simply and honestly, "We are not afraid." Neither, it seems, is Canada.